Hey friends, Randy Bunch here of Connecting Point Communications and Off-Road Adventures. And I thought I would do something today that I've seen others do, and I thought it might be kind of fun to do it as well. I want to go through some of the gear that I use for our channels, both for our Connecting Point Communications channel, for our broadcast that we broadcast into 182 nations of the world, and also for Off-Road Adventures, which is kind of my passion project. My wife and I got into off-roading this last year, and we created a ministry out of it. We have offroadadventures.org, where we share scenic photography as well as some devotionals. And of course, to do that, you got to have some camera gear. So I thought I would go through some of the gear that I use, both for filming, and then I'll talk a little bit about editing. And then I'm going to do a separate video talking about our Jeep and some of the equipment that we've got for that. I think that might be kind of fun too. So to start with, of course, I have my camera bag, and I have some of my gear in here. Some of it I've got sitting off to the side of me. But I'm going to go through some of the things that I use. And let me just put a disclaimer out there right away. I am an amateur videographer. I've been doing it for a lot of years. I'm probably better on the editing side than I am the actual filming side. And so there's a lot of things I fixed in post-production using Final Cut Pro, which is my non-linear editing software of choice. But, you can use all sorts. A lot of people like Adobe Premiere. DaVinci now is really big. In fact, I've got that downloaded as well. Haven't got into it a lot yet. But regardless of what you use, let me say this. The number one piece of equipment you need for being a good videographer, in my opinion, is your imagination. If you can see it, you can find a way to get it on film. You can find a way to make an end product. And so really having an eye and having an imagination, a good concept of what you want to accomplish, is really key to being a good videographer, in my opinion. And I think a lot of videographers would say that. Also, this idea of being able to tell a story. If you're doing certain kinds of videos and you want to be able to tell a story with that. And so, in our scenic videos, we try to convey that idea of moving from one place to another, even though I'm pretty young in it and I'm not necessarily the best at it. But nevertheless, when it comes to videography and software and some of the equipment, we've been doing this a little bit for a little while. And so we've seen a lot of equipment changes over the years. When I first started filming our broadcast in Vermont through the public access stations, and then we began doing overseas, I was using a Sony camera, which required a mini cassette. It was a 3CCD camera, wonderful production quality camera, cost several $1,000s. And back then, that's what you used, these mini cassettes. And then you would, through your wiring setup, back then it was either FireWire or something, you would, download that to your computer and then use the footage, the AVI or the whatever it was, MP4 footage, you would begin to edit. I think back then it was more like AVI, it was more the raw footage, larger files. And then you would, render that down to whatever size that you wanted for delivery. Back then, we actually put everything on DVDs and sent it to India, sent it to various public access stations in Vermont. And we were very green. I just began to realize, hey, I'd rather do this and have control rather than, take this to the local public access station, which had some editing software, but was limited. It was really going out of style because desktop video editing was coming into its own, and I wanted to stay ahead of the curve. So back then I used Sony Vegas as my non-linear software editing, and I loved it. It was great. Sony was wonderful. But then Sony sold it. It's still Vegas, but it's owned by, I think, Magix now. And it's still good, but it's just, I went Mac. And so when I went Mac, I went to Final Cut Pro. So let me talk a little bit about some of the equipment that we use now. And I'll start off by what you're watching me on. That is my iPhone. The iPhones have become a genuine piece of filmmaking kit. They have movies now that Hollywood is using iPhones on because of just the simplicity, obviously the size, the quality of image, all that kind of stuff is so good. I'm using cinematic mode, which you really can't tell right now. I'm filming at 4K 30 frames per second, and you can't really tell right now, but if you have a little bit more background behind me, it's a blurred background, which is the holy grail of cinematic, effect that you're trying to get. And it's wonderful. I do still my devotionals for Off-Road Adventures with the iPhone. The one challenge that I'm having is getting good sound out in the field because we have so much wind noise. With my iPhone, I like to use this little microphone right here. It's the Shure MV88. I think, is that right? MV88. It's a very popular iPhone microphone. Fits right into the slot on your iPhone, the same one you use for charging, obviously. And it's a wonderful little mic. It comes in a lot of different iterations. Sometimes It'll be more of a shotgun looking mic kind of thing. And then you can plug it in. It'll even have a stand that comes with it. But if you can get these on Amazon very easily. So it's the Shure MV88. And like I said, they come in different versions. I like the simple just plug and play one like this. The other ones sometimes have a cable. It's still plug and play. But I love this little mic. It's particularly great for indoor stuff. It still does not shield the wind noise. So on some of our off-road adventures, devotionals, you notice we have quite a bit of wind noise. Now, because it's an off-roading channel, I don't worry about that too much. That's part of the experience. But at the same time, if people find what you're trying to record too difficult to listen to, they're probably not going to listen to it real long. So if any of you have an answer for the wind noise, I would be blessed if you would share in the comments what that is. Of course, what we're doing a lot is ministry-based. So the purpose of what we're videoing is going to be maybe different from others, but again, the message is what's crucial, right? And even that's true in, I guess, any kind of filmmaking. So you want to make sure it's clear and understandable. So if anybody's solved the wind noise on an iPhone, I would love to know. My primary camera that I film our broadcast with is a Canon M50. I absolutely love this little guy. I've got the Sigma 16 millimeter 1.4 f-stop lens. This lens right here, I'm going to get back to the camera in a moment, but this is an amazing lens. You can see I've got the hood on it. This is the primary lens that we use, and it's called a primary lens because it's not a telephoto lens. This is the primary lens that we use when we do our television broadcast. It's a 1.4 f-stop, which means it lets in a lot of light, and so you get that beautiful blended, that beautiful blurred background look, very cinematic look. This is probably one of the best lenses that's made for this Canon M50. Now, the M50 is a completely digital camera. Even the viewfinder on the back, which I've got the viewfinder facing outward so I can see it. If I were filming on this, I could see everything I'm filming out the back. But what's great about this little viewfinder is that it also flips out. So when I'm filming my broadcast, I have this thing flipped out with the lens obviously on it. And then I can see exactly what I'm filming. And what's great about this viewfinder is it is a digital viewfinder, meaning that what I'm seeing is exactly what I'm filming. Now, some of them are not analog. I'm trying to think of what the word is. It's not digital. So even though you're seeing what you're looking at, you have to take a test photo to make sure what the image looks like. You do not have to with this digital viewfinder. This was Canon's best-selling camera a couple years back. Now, I don't know how it's doing today, but I can tell you from my experience, it is a wonderful, wonderful camera, particularly when partnered together with a wonderful lens like this Sigma 16 millimeter 1.4 f-stop lens. The lens costs as much or more than the camera probably, but that's really what photography is. The lens is really a crucial part of that. So getting a good primary lens is so important. I love this lens. I would highly recommend it. I can't remember exactly how much it costs, but you're looking at the $300, $400, $500 range probably. I think it was like around $400, $500 when I got it. Maybe a little cheaper now because a couple of years have passed by. But it is a wonderful primary lens. It'll give you that beautiful low f-stop so you get that blurred background. It's wonderful. I've also begun to use it outside. And so I've learned how to, do manual settings with it so that I could get the best shot possible. I'm experimenting with that as we do the off-road adventure stuff. And so this camera has been wonderful. When I bought it as a kit. So it also came with this Rode microphone. Again, this is a great mic. If you go to Amazon and look for Canon M50, you'll probably find a ton of different kits that are possible. And so when I got it, it came, of course, with the kit lens, which generally the kit lens is, you want to move past that pretty quickly. But it came with this mic, which is a wonderful microphone. It is so good for our broadcast. It's a shotgun mic, so it's staying back from me, several feet, 3 to 5 feet, maybe usually around 3 feet, probably, maybe even sometimes closer. But for that purpose, it is an amazing microphone. But there are a lot of good various microphones out there. It's got the the plug-in for the microphone, of course. So this is my primary setup for doing my television broadcast, which goes into 182 nations of the world. It gives me a great professional look, and yet the camera is not going to break the bank. Again, camera's going to be probably around, I didn't even look at prices before I got in here. So, but you're looking, at a moderate range. I'd say somewhere between $300 to $500. Again, depending on whom you buy it from, if they're, doing it. I think my whole kit was like in the $700 range because I got, a microphone. I got several other filters with it, several things like that. So, you're looking at a very moderate price range. And so when I say that I'm an amateur, videographer, somebody that's doing this for a living, like doing weddings and so forth, are probably going to have a lot more advanced setup. But for me, this is wonderful. And it's, I think, produced some very good quality broadcasts, as well as some of the stuff that we're going to begin to do on Off-Road Adventures. Like I said, a lot of what I do on Off-Road Adventures right now, we do it, especially the devotionals, we do it with the iPhone. And really, to be honest, other than the wind noise, if you're just looking at it, you really, because they both film in 4K. Now, actually, this camera, I'll take it back. This is a 4K camera, but I film in 1080p. The reason why is because, for the most part, I'm going to be going to YouTube anyway, and YouTube's going to compress it anyway. And YouTube's compression is very, very good. So when I'm watching it at 1080p on YouTube, even though it's been compressed dramatically, it still looks really, really good, even though the file is smaller. I think my file coming off the camera, off the SD drive, when I load it on, it's like around 4-point-something gigs. And then when I actually download off YouTube back to myself to send it to one of our stations, because they want that smaller file, or it's easier to get that smaller file on my Google Drive. It's something like, gosh, what is it? Like 700 is a good average megabytes. Is that right? Or gigabytes? What am I saying? Yeah, gigabytes. I'm sorry. No, megabytes. 700 and something megabytes. So it's a lot smaller than the 4-point-something gigabytes that it comes off raw. So needless to say, it's a smaller file, but it still looks amazing. And in fact, when we film with our iPhone, we film in 4K 30p, and then we render it, obviously, and then put it on YouTube. We rendered it 4K 30p also, and then we send it on YouTube, which compresses it. But you can still watch it on 4K on YouTube, and it looks amazing. And in fact, anything we do scenic photography, I want to encourage you, make sure you're watching it on the 4K setting on YouTube. You can do that on your computer and your phone. I found the app is better than just looking on the website. If you're looking on your phone, go to the YouTube app. It's a little bit better. But anyway, this is our primary camera for our broadcasting with that lens. Recently, I also purchased a telephoto lens. Now, this lens is not necessarily a super high dollar lens. It's a Canon. Let me see if I can get the name. It's the EFS 55 to 250 millimeter. It's got image stabilization. So it's a very kind of budget friendly telephoto lens. It's not super high dollar, though it does have good image stabilization, which when you're doing telephoto is extremely important. So there was a cheaper lens that I thought, well, I'm just getting into it. Maybe I'll go with that cheaper one, but it did not have image stabilization. And in the reviews, always read the reviews. In the reviews, one of the guys said, hey, this doesn't have image stabilization, so stay away from it. This one does. And so it's the Canon EFS 55 to 250 millimeter. And I actually really like this lens. I've used it already. And because I have a Canon M50, it does not natively fit the it does not fit the EF or the EFS lenses. So you have to get this little adapter on the end here. I have this, what's it called? Viltrox adapter on the end here. And this little guy is an amazing adapter. And what's really cool about it was if you get from Canon an adapter, it's going to cost you about $125. I know, because I almost bought one. But then I watched a training video on the Canon M50 camera, and they were saying, you know, you can find them a lot cheaper. In fact, I watched a couple of different ones. So anyway, I went to Amazon and found this for like $36. And it's an amazing little piece of kit here. And it's a wonderful adapter. It works perfectly, very small, but it works perfectly with this lens, and I absolutely love it. So I want to encourage you to get, you know, if you're going to get a telephoto lens and you're starting out, this is a great little lens. Again, it's the EFS 55 to 250 millimeter Canon lens. Now, obviously, this one is only like, I want to say $239, so it's a very inexpensive lens. It's not going to be the quality of lens that you can get. You can get lenses, obviously, that go up into the, you know, tens of thousands of dollars, but I'm not going to spend that. So, nevertheless, and then, of course, like I said, it comes with a little kit lens that I still have that I pretty much never use. And then inside my bag, I also have a lot of cables. Let me just say this. I got this camera bag, by the way. It's a, what is it? It's called a, I don't know what it's called, Norax or whatever it is. But anyway, it's a great little camera bag, real padded, very nice. It's also got a covering so that if it's rainy, you can cover the whole thing in a plastic sheet or a plastic cover that it's got and carry it around so that your stuff does not get wet. So that is primarily a lot of my camera stuff. The telephoto lens, the primary lens, the Canon M50, and then of course you have items like your tripod. You want to get a good tripod. This is a great tripod that I've really liked. It's by Canon. It's a great little tripod. I've been using it now for the last year or so. And then I have a lot of other little tripods. This one is for my phone. My phone fits right in here. And a lot of times when I'm doing my morning devotionals, because we do a lot live on Facebook, this will be sitting up on my desk with my phone in it sideways, of course, on cinematic mode like it is right now. And we'll be doing that. This little tripod fits my Canon M50. Wonderful little tripod. This is a Manfrotto, I think. No, this is a small rig. This is a Manfrotto. And then this is by Small Rig. And it's a great, I get all these things on Amazon for the most part. Wonderful little tripod, very sturdy, cast iron, very sturdy, like it a lot. Used it quite a bit, especially when I first started filming. I would film from my desk toward my bookcase, like I do in the morning when I do my live devotionals, and that little Small Rig is what held my M50 camera, and it held it wonderfully. Now, one last item that I want to talk about that is hugely important to us today in our off-road adventures filming is our drone. Now, is it MJI or what is the name of this company? I think it's MJI. No, DJI. I don't know what it is. Anyway, they're well-known, DJI, I think it is. They're well-known as one of the foremost drone making companies. Yeah, DJI, I guess. And this is the Mavic Air 2. If I had it to do over again, I would do the Mavic Air 2S, which is a little bit better version of the Mavic Air 2. It's more of a kind of a step up, a professional. But this little guy, this drone, is just absolutely amazing. Not to mention a blast. But my wife and I have been going out off-roading now for, like I said, not quite a year. But when I began to realize that I wanted to film our adventures, we were just, putting our iPhone up in the windshield on a stand, and really, kind of cheesy, but just kind of fun. Again, it was just a passion project. We weren't doing off-road adventures yet at the time. We just called it Jeep Adventures, and we were just kind of having a good time with friends and letting them see. And so we didn't have anything like this at the time. We just had our iPhone, and then I would turn the iPhone around, and then we would film, the roads we were on, the mountains. And then, of course, we got some footage of badgers, and all of that was on iPhone. And so we didn't have the drone yet. And so as I began to go on YouTube and watch more and more adventure photographers, which technically that's what we do, it's called adventure photography, I began to notice that almost all of them utilized a drone. And I'm telling you, as an amateur adventure photographer, videographer, the drone, oh my gosh, it makes you look like a pro right away. For one thing, it films in 4K. So we do the 4K 30 resolution. It is amazing. The images that we get out of this are wonderful. Obviously, flying a drone, it's like playing a video game in a way, except that you've got maybe $1,000 investment, not quite $1,000, but $1,000 investment flying in the air that you don't want to crash. It's not like buying a video game. It's more expensive. But we made the investment because we knew we were going to be doing this for a while. We saw the potential. And the drone actually serves a multitude of purposes. Obviously, it helps us in making our beautiful scenic photography, which we're trying to develop better skills and abilities with that all along. But it also serves some other purposes. Oftentimes, if we're in our Jeep and we're on a road that we're not familiar with, and particularly if we know it may potentially go to some precarious places that we might not be able to get back out of, for example, we'll send the drone ahead of us because we can see on the phone, it has an app, and your phone becomes a viewfinder. We can see what it sees, whether we're filming or not, obviously. So we can see the road ahead of us. And so we've oftentimes sent it where we can't go to see what does the road look like. Oh, okay, that's great, we can go. Other times we'll send it where we can't go just to get footage of places that you're never going to see if you stay on the path. So sometimes we use it for filming, sometimes we use it for exploration, and sometimes we use it just to be safe. Make sure that where we're going has an egress, not just an entrance, but an egress, so we can get out of there as well. I wished I'd had this when I got trapped in the canyon a while back and spent 2 nights, where my Jeep spent 2 nights up on the mountain, and that wasn't fun. So it has obviously a controller, looks like a video controller, and it pretty much is like that. If you play video games, you can fly a drone. It just takes a little bit of skill, a little bit of practice. But to be honest with you, it's a very easy way of making your footage look wonderful. And again, if you were going to get one, I would recommend the DJI Mavic Air Pro 2S. The Mavic Air 3 is out, and it's a more professional line drone, but the problem with it is that there are certain features that when it first came out, it did not have. Now, from what I understand, it has those features now, like automatic track. If you're watching my videos a lot, you'll notice that I'm driving along in my Jeep, and people have asked me, who's flying your drone while you're driving? I said, I am. And they'll think, oh my God, you got those controls? No. We can actually trace the Jeep with our finger on the screen of the iPhone while it's plugged into the controller and tell it we want it to active track, either parallel or track behind us, and it will do it automatically. And so sometimes if I'm coming down the right hill, I'll even have the drone come in front of me, and it gets all these really creative shots. I know when I bought the drone, I got it at the Apple Store, and I was talking to a gentleman who was involved with the movie business down in Hollywood at one time, and he said, I remember when we had to hire a helicopter and paid $2,500 for just one strafing shot, where now with a drone, you make the initial investment, spend, I think my drone with the kit was $799. And so, you're looking not a little under $1,000. You can get them cheaper than that, but for the whole kit, I think it's $599 for the drone. If you get the Mavic Air 2S, it's a little bit more, but I think it's worth the investment to get the S rather than just the Mavic Air 3, Mavic Air 2. But nevertheless, he said for just that, one strafing shot in the movie that they needed a helicopter to get for him, it spent $2,500 for that. Whereas now you make a single investment, like I said, $799. Let's just say $850 with tax and delivery and all that. But you're under $1,000, you can do that forever. And it came with not only the blades, the propeller blades, but it came with an extra set of them. And it's a wonderful piece of kit. I've lost it a couple of times. It has a device on the controller where you can say, find my drone, and it's got like a little Google map thing on it. It actually uses your maps on your phone. It'll lead you right to it. There's been a couple of times where I don't hear real well, so even though you can make it beep and flash, I couldn't hear it beeping and flashing until I was right up on it, but I could follow the map and literally walk right to where the drone was. Pretty cool. So anyway, friends, that's our gear. That's our photography gear. We built it up over a long time. So you say it sounds like, quite a bit of money. Well, again, everything we have is really relatively on the low end of what you can pay for when it comes to photography. Even our drone is on kind of the bottom end. But at the end of the day, if it looks good, 90% of the people that are watching aren't thinking, now, which kind of drone is that? I don't know if I want to watch this if it's not a Mavic Air 3. They're not thinking like that. Or a Mavic 3, that's a Mavic Air 2. I can't watch that. Nobody's thinking like that. They don't know what that is. So the issue is, does it look good? Is it cool? Is it engaging? Are you telling a story? Are you giving good content? At the end of the day, that's what's important. So I want to encourage you, if you are interested in videography, starting a YouTube channel, start with what you've got. If you've got an iPhone, particularly one of the newer ones, and if it has cinematic mode, if it's an iPhone 13 Pro or 13 Pro Max like I have, it's going to have that cinematic mode. You can do these like face-to-face or interview style things. There's all sorts of different mics. I also have some plug-in mics that, are corded that I can plug in to me and to like somebody else. I've interviewed my son. My son's interviewed me using those kinds of mics when we were talking about various Bible stuff, and it works wonderfully. So I'm just saying, start with where you're at. Most everybody has either an iPhone or some kind of phone that has a camera, they video, and you can download that to your computer and start with that. Get good at editing. Let me just say something about editing. Post-production is really where the magic starts. There's not a single piece of footage I put out today that is not tinkered with by the time you see it. Right now I'm filming this. I'm looking at an image. It's not real great. I've got a light source behind me that's a little bit too bright, which is not something you should ideally do. I need a light source in front of me that I don't have a real strong one. So I'll get in here and I'll mess with this in post-production and make it look a little bit better. But I would say every single piece of footage you see, I've tweaked, I've color corrected, I've put a LUT on there, something that, makes their colors more vibrant or tames them down a little bit. And you can do that either with what's called a LUT, which basically is a preset color correcting device on software, or you can just do it manually with color wheels. All the different softwares have things like that. So, a lot of the magic is done there. Also, the power of music in editing is not to be underrated. I'll never forget, I need to close soon, so I'll close with this story, baby. How long have I been going? Long enough. I'll never forget this. When I very first started video editing and all this kind of stuff, getting our broadcasts out there, I went down to downtown Burlington in Vermont with my camera at that time, which was a good, like I said, little Sony camera. And I just began to film little, vignettes of people sitting by themselves, eating a bite, guy walking to work, all these vignettes. I took it home and I saw these people in isolation. So I edited it down and just slowed the footage down. I didn't slow it down a lot, but enough to where you could tell it was slow-mo, which creates more of a contemplative kind of mood. I desaturated, took the color out, which makes it feel more isolated and lonely. I put I took Sarah McLachlan's song, because I was just doing it for fun. So this was over 7 years ago, so maybe they can't get me for copyright infringement. But I took Sarah McLachlan's song called something Grace. I can't even remember the name of the song now. Or Full of Grace, or I can't remember. But anyway, I put that song behind the footage, and I would have captions come up: loneliness, isolation. And then I talked about how Jesus is the answer to all that. Kind of at the end, and then I added color at the very last scene, beautiful image of the sun coming through the trees. I edited it all together, and then I showed it on Sunday. I said, here's what we're going to begin doing. We're going to begin using, some videography and, doing some different things to try to capture people's attention. I showed that video and I looked around and I saw these ladies that are crying. People are moved. And I thought, wow, the power of media, particularly music. And then, creating a mood with your software, good color correction. You can tell a story. And if you had saw the raw footage, it would have communicated none of that. But between having a little bit of an imagination, which I said is the primary videographer's tool, and telling a story with that, it had a powerful impact. So I want to encourage you, particularly for those of you that are believers, wanting to make an impact for God. I do a lot that's live, that you don't edit, and that's great. Start there, because to be honest with you, people are really interested. If you look at a lot of the YouTubes, they're not super rehearsed. They're more kind of like people working in the garage, or they're people doing fun, exciting, adventurous things, whatever. I watch a lot of off-road channels that have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of subscribers, and yet, or even thousands, and yet, they're very rough, but at the same time, they're telling a story. So if you can tell a story and do that live, or just if there's very simple editing, that's great. Do that. Podcasts are really big right now. They're very easy to do on YouTube. But if you want to get into the editing and want to do a quality production, just start with where you are. You're going to have to get some kind of nonlinear editing software. I think Final Cut's great. You can get that easily with your Mac. And now it's so much affordable. I remember when you paid thousands of dollars for that stuff. And now it's like for $299 an app. You can get Final Cut Pro and other softwares. Like some are subscription-based, like the Adobe stuff. So you can find a way to do that. But I'm telling you, you can have such a tremendous impact through media. I've been doing media ministry now for years and years and years. I'm still very green on the photography side of it, but in the video editing side of it, it's where I found the magic to really be, because you can tell your story, you can set it to music, you can communicate and touch the hearts of people so powerfully with media. What the devil has taken and used for evil, we can take and use for good. So I want to encourage you, if you're at all interested in getting in the media game, do so. Take advantage of maybe young people around you know more than you do. And you can find anything on YouTube and Google. So if you need more information, everything I learned about my M50 camera, I learned from a simple, YouTube video where they went through the whole thing, and almost everything I'm doing today is a result of watching that one tutorial. So there's so much you can do with the resources we have today that are really accessible to everybody. We have social media platforms, and today some of the most powerful influence in our culture are not celebrities, they're not news personalities, they're YouTubers. So you can have a profound impact on our culture and our society by taking advantage of the tools we have today and utilizing them for the kingdom of God. So friend, we hope this was a blessing to you. We went a lot longer than I intended to, but hopefully it'll be a blessing to you. God bless you guys. We'll talk to you next time when we talk about our Jeep equipment. And so we'll be talking about that next time. All right. God bless. Bye-bye.